Hey, Thrive Loud listeners, Lou Diamond here. Fun interview today with the amazing and energetic Lisa McDonald, a woman of many hats, author, speaker, TV, radio host, blogger, personal development coach, mentor, mother. She's a rock star. A lot of fun. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the interview. Sit back, relax, listen.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I am your host, Lou Diamond, and today is sure to be fun and fearless, as we have for you today, Lisa McDonald. Lisa wears many hats. She is a successful author, motivational speaker, TV and radio host, blogger, personal development coach, mentor, and mother of two. Prior to her life in the public eye, Lisa had a successful 25-year career with the social services sector. Lisa McDonald is the author of 3 best-selling children's books, Little Boy Gan from Passion-Filled Everland, Reimburse the Universe, and Planet Pomegranate. I love that title. On her weekly radio talk show, Living Fearlessly, Lisa interviews a variety of newsmakers, leaders, authors, and celebrities, and really cool people, I might add. In her personal and professional life, Lisa walks the walk and talks the talk by exercising daily gratitude, paying it forward, and being of service to others. She shares the message that the key to success and happiness comes through learning how to live life fearlessly. Lisa McDonald, I am so happy to have you on Thrive Loud today. How are you?
I'm great, Lou. Thanks so much for that very kind intro. My goodness. Wow.
So we are flipping the tables because I'm going to share how I know Lisa McDonald, a personal connection. And it's kind of funny. As you know, Lisa is normally asking the questions on her show. And I have been privileged to be on her show, I think twice actually this year, which was very cool and a true honor. Probably helped say, dude, I got to do this more often, and probably led to Thrive Loud. So we'll give her some of the credit. But I wanted to share how I met Lisa, because that's kind of a cool story in itself. I was in New York, as was she, at the inaugural C-Suite Network Advisors kickoff. And it was in like the end of the session during maybe like the last cocktail hour. And there was this very cool looking, like the other side of the pillow looking type of person. I think that's a good way to describe her. She was like almost in this like quasi, like almost Indian garb / cool looking like fashion statement that was definitely standing out, but very confident and very cool. We started talking to one another, got into this whole conversation, and we were like, oh, wow, I'd love to be on your show. I'd love to hear about your book, Lou. And all of a sudden, and then literally the ultimate hijacking moment of all time, Dove Barron, who's a great leadership guru from out in Vancouver, literally like grabs her and pulls her away for this long Facebook Live thing. Note to self, keep the cocktails away from Dove Barron. And we lost Lisa from that conversation, but I will say that we were able to pick it up. And when I got to be on her show, and I feel so honored to be able to return the favor. So Lisa, how are you?
Oh, you're hilarious, but you're also very endearing. Thank you so much for all your kind words, Lou. And you know, I want to thank you very much for providing me this opportunity to be on your show. And yeah, it is turning the tables, and it's always interesting to have the tables turned. So I'm really excited about this time with you and very grateful. So thank you.
So the real challenge for this, which I said, I go, how am I going to keep the queen of unscripted dialogue, because that's one of her big themes of her show, to be scripted? And I'm not even going to try to, because that's not the intention of for the Thrive Loud listeners. So the best way for those listeners here to really understand someone who is living life fearlessly is to kind of hear your story. And I think that's the best way to kick it off. I think I want to kind of kick off in a little bit of your journey and your path to how you got to where you are today. And I know I want kind of the abridged version, but I also want the one that really highlights how you've really taken your credo, because it is something that others and Thrive Loud listeners would truly value.
Well, I appreciate that. So I'll try and be as succinct as possible because we're covering a lot of ground here with a lot of years in my history. But
It's only about like
so
29 of them. I don't know what you're talking about.
you're lovely. So I've been on my own since 16 years old, due to a lot of family circumstances. Everybody's got a past. Everybody's got things that they've had to overcome and challenge, and have faced challenges with. And so mine started at a very young age. I'm an incest survivor, and my family broke apart roughly around the time that not long afterwards I branched out on my own and really found my own place in this world and made my own mark. And so I've been a workhorse ever since. You're right. I did work in social services for 25 years, and I don't believe in coincidences. So I do believe that a lot of what happened to me in my own life is what really helped mold me and help me become an empathetic, compassionate person, where understanding whether the circumstances of other people's stories and journeys were completely exactly like mine, although in some cases were. It really was about helping people during their most difficult times. And my goal has always been to help people empower themselves, to find their voice, to really hone what
Right.
it is they believe their purpose is, and to just, facilitate whatever I can do to be a part of their journey that helps them recognize the beauty within.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And succinct, which I'm shocked at. I was like, oh my God, she's actually gonna make this short. No, I'm just kidding. And it's such a great series. I'm not taking this lightly, because I think what you've
I can laugh about it.
no, but I think what you've overcome and what you've done is powerful. And there's an energy about Lisa McDonald, for those that listen to her show, and how she gets into it. And there's something great about how your life has sculpted this path from a lot of challenges, overcoming them, witnessing them so much, obviously, from your career in social services, and channeling that into writing children's books, and also just tapping into how people are living fearlessly. You really have, I got to give you credit. You have packaged a brand of Lisa that is wonderful and engaging to talk to. And that is the thing that everyone will say, not only knowing your story, but also seeing the energy that you have. Because man, you have energy. You are a fire spark, just absolutely like ready to light things up. And I think that is the benefit. And I'll channel this to the whole living fearlessly. You know that we talked about this, that a fearless mindset is one of the key muscles about the connecting core that I talk about. And we loved talking about this before, about living fearlessly. I wanted to ask you, as the host of your show, what have been some of the recent fearless stories that you have heard that have inspired you personally? Because you have some amazing guests that share stories that I listen to, and I'm like, wow, that was unbelievable. So what of late has really tapped into you that's really been adding to your fearless mindset and walking the walk and talking the talk?
Wow, that's a loaded question. It's a very great question. I've been very fortunate that I've been doing this for going on 2.5 years. So every single guest, whether they have been a notable household name or not, they've all brought something very spectacular to the show, and they've all embodied the core ingredient that I seek out for bringing guests on my show, which is how they have demonstrated, embodied, and have exemplified what it means to live fearlessly. So those stories, just generically speaking, have ranged from, people battling depression, people stepping out into becoming an entrepreneur, people taking major risks because they fundamentally believe in themselves, whether that turned out into birthing a book, an album, a speaking circuit, the list goes on. I find a common theme, again, no coincidence, a lot of my guests will say openly and rawly and candidly to the listeners is, and I talk quite openly about this and have with you, Lou, is, becoming the master of how it is to turn shit into gold.
Yeah.
because, there's so many things that life will throw your way, and we are forever constantly challenged to have to rise. And I believe it comes down to making a choice, and when you get to be this stage in life, none of us come out unscathed. We've all, as human beings, understand what it is to feel the plethora of the emotional umbrella. We know what it is to feel challenged. We know what it is to feel isolated. We know what it is to feel misunderstood or stigmatized. A lot of what's happened in my life falls under the taboo blanket. So, I feel that there's a true, genuine connection with myself and the guests and the listeners. And they've been very open about what it is that has propelled them and catapulted them into their journey and on the path that they're on. So, it's gone from fundraising initiatives, things that have been near and dear to their heart as a result of issues that they've had to battle in their life, whether it be chronic disease, whether it be depression, whether it be bankruptcy, whether it be divorce. And people have taken that and found their true purpose. So these are the people that end up becoming household names, people who have written 82 books in like 10 different languages, 20 different languages. I've interviewed people who have been part of the Syrian refugee debacle that's happened. There's just been so many that I can't right now just off the cuff pinpoint. But every conversation that I have been blessed to have been a part of has just been absolutely phenomenal. And I walk away with nuggets. I walk away with wisdom. I walk away with different perspectives. And it helps me to recalibrate my thinking sometimes on days where I feel challenged and I feel like, because there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes with what you and I do, Lou, that sometimes people don't grasp or don't understand. People see all the great momentous things that get marketed and get plugged and get ramped up and get launched, and people don't understand that although everything that they would glean looks like, oh wow, like everything is a bullseye, everything is a home run. It's not everything is a yes. For every yes I get, there's probably been 10 no's. For every acceptance I get, there's a rejection or many rejections. And that's the story that you will hear from anybody who has chosen to persevere and not give up. And so really it comes down to not quitting. And it comes down to, for me, as I oftentimes say, be your own hero, be your own Shiro, be your own leader. It all starts within.
No, it's so sharp and right on the point each time. And what I find is that I think, because I've spoken to you after different shows and whatnot, and people ask me all the time, what do you love about doing these interviews? And what I think I've learned is it's not only taking a nugget, you're taking a piece of that individual, and that courage that they go through is contagious. And just hearing it one-on-one in these interviews, I know, I mean, you can go listen to an earlier interview that you did and then fast forward it and look at it now and say, wow, look at how much more confident I am from all those people that have shared their stories. And you do a great job of doing that. I have to, again, applaud you. It's energizing to listen to the show and to hear these incredible stories, but also to be able to pinpoint what is that fearless moment that they're jumping through and what is the thing that they are overcoming, and sharing that story and that pain. But it's affecting you. So it's making you a better interviewer. So that's
absolutely.
I'm only hoping to live up to the Lisa McDonald standard.
I think you're doing a phenomenal job, and congratulations on all your success, Lou. You're quite inspiring to follow.
Well, yeah, thank you. Right back at you. So I wanted to ask this question because this is a cool thing. I have read a couple of your children's books because I actually was helping to share them with some people because it's a great message. And I am a child at heart, so it always kicks right to me. Actually, many people think I am a child.
You are?
I am literally after 18, or forget 18, I'm like 8 all day long. So the thing about this is a tough transition. You've moved from writing a children's book to moving on to writing something that's out of the children's literature space. And how has that challenge been for you? And what have you liked about it? And what has been really, really challenging?
Well, that's a great question, and it's a layered question because, of course, for me personally, and other authors who have endeavored to write both children's books and adult books may have a different viewpoint on this. For me, it was easier to write the children's books. One, because it's less content; it doesn't detract from the quality of the content or the message being equally pivotal and profound, in my opinion, with what I've written. I'm very proud of all the bodies of work that I've written to date. But the adult manuscript, that was my life, and there was a lot of reasons for my having written that. I think one, it was very cathartic. It was a story that needed to be told. And of course, for everything that I endeavor to do, my objective in all of it is to impart my message to the masses, because I know from the feedback that I've received, and I know for myself, having been intangibly mentored by so many other people who I will never know, but their message has resonated with me and helped me regain clarity, helped me regain focus. If I can be that to one person who feels isolated or who feels alone or is playing small in their life. And so this is what I talk about in my adult book. It's not only my own personal account of what happened to me in my life and how each chapter, as you go through, you see what my lessons were and how I chose to use that to construct a positive path, and one that I wanted to use to help other people. And I believe that I've done that. I believe that that book itself will continue to do that. But it was a very emotional project of mine. I cried a lot. I cried an awful lot. It was opening up a lot of old wounds, and not that I've ever been one to choose to live in denial. I'm very clear on all that's happened in my life. I've accepted it. I've embraced it, and I believe I've used it for good. As unfortunate as some of the things are that happen to us, for me, my viewpoint, my perspective on it is I'm not glad that those things have happened to me, and I certainly wouldn't wish them upon anyone else, but I really don't know that I would be who I am today. I don't know that I would be as plugged into other people. I don't know that I would be as compassionate or as empathetic, or that it would be as important to me as what it is to be a leader in my own life, therefore showing other people that it's okay to do the same. It's not about narcissism. It's not about ego. I think it's my inherent responsibility to take the gifts, to take the lessons of what has happened to me and use it to help other people. And that's another aspect of how I choose to pay it forward and be of service.
No, and it's powerful. As you started talking about this and talking about a lot of crying, if it's okay that I can share this story.
Yeah.
Recently, earlier this year, you had a whole bunch of friends that were going through a lot of very challenging moments, and you shared some of that feedback on Facebook Live, actually. Mm-hmm. I don't think I have ever had a more emotional day than because sometimes people put a lot of stuff on social media that are obviously we love to see the dogs, the cats, all the fun things. We could all live without all the politics, but in that particular window, you shared some incredible, really touching and powerful stories about people that were going through some really tough challenges. If you want to share some of that right now, that would be great. But it was more along the lines of your openness and energy that you did with that from some people that were suffering from going through some things that were challenging to you. Can you talk a little bit about that? Just because It was really great. It really was powerful.
Sure. So, I've got a few friends, two local to me, one who's not local to me. And the one who's not local to me, I've interviewed on radio a couple times. She's who I refer to as my passion test sister. But what all three of them share in common is their grappling with breast cancer. Right. And, when you've got friends who are the same age as you, and in the case of my two local friends whose children play with my children, we do the birthday parties, we're from Dundas. So, there's so many different things that interlock us and have interwoven our lives together. So coming from a background where my mom was a bit of an anomaly with her own breast cancer journey, she succumbed to that in June 27th, actually 2014. But she was always said to have been a bit of an anomaly because she defied stats, and she actually got a 20-year run even after initial aggressive diagnosis in 1994. So, when you go through something like that, as we did as a family, regardless of some of the dynamics that played out in my family that kept us in and out of each other's lives through estrangement during certain pockets of that, and her sister, my aunt, who I was very close to in spite of the fact that she lived in England, it just seems that cancer, and we all know somebody who has cancer, unfortunately. It's very systemic, it's very epidemic. But it's been tough. And, my friends have been very great to me in terms of my circumstances of being a single parent. So on days when there's been stat holidays at school, but it happens to always be seemingly my radio day, they've been very fantastic in stepping up and taking the kids to help me out. And I, in turn, am now helping them out to the degree that I can, or they wish to call upon me to assist them. So I've taken their kids before, school starts, so I can do the school drop off, and that affords them enough travel time to get to their cancer treatment appointments at the hospital. It's tough. It's tough when you see people that you love, and it does hit home on a different level when they happen to be your same gender, your same age, and you've got the connectedness of children being the same age and being playmates and friends, being afflicted by this. And you see how it changes them. You see how it changes them physically. You see the ups and downs of them emotionally. You see the effects of their treatments and how they grapple with that. It's a bit of a trigger in one regard, because I did, like I say, I went through that with my own family for 20 years. But I try to help out in any which way that I can. And I believe, we all can. There's always something, no matter what your circumstances are, there's always a way in which to help somebody, even if it's something like, making yourself available to talk to them on the phone, to just listen. It doesn't have to be based on monetary means. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. People will oftentimes tell you, particularly when they're feeling their most vulnerable and they're feeling fragile, it's the little things that mean the most to them. So just knowing that somebody takes the initiative to reach out and say, hey, I know you had a treatment today. How are you? Thinking of you. No need to respond. I know energetically you might not feel up to it, but just know that I'm thinking about you and I love you and I care about you and I'm here to support you. So it's just, it's been tough. It's always tough when you see people you love and care about being afflicted by things.
And your ability to empathize with everybody is great. And writing your personal story, going through all of those things, the ability to push through that strength is great. And obviously it also shows what a great friend you are. And I think that's something that comes right out of you, and that's something your friends should value as well. And why so many people love talking on your show, because they feel like you're a friend immediately. You draw them in, Lisa. You have that ability.
Thanks, Lou.
So let's flip it to the more positive side, and I'm just going to start singing because I think it'll be better. Hopefully our listeners are still here, and hopefully they don't turn it off after hearing this. But I'll just start off with, who are the people in your neighborhood? I've been wanting to do that because you got to get Bob McGrath on your show, and I think from anybody there at one point used to be a time where they called the Gen Xers, whatever we are, I guess but they actually used to call it the Sesame Street generation, because of the fact that this was the first age group that actually was brought up watching Sesame Street and watching an educational television show. How cool was that to have Bob on the show?
Oh, super cool. And what's even greater about this is he was so gracious. This is actually, as you know, I go live every Friday. So he's my guest this Friday, but he's actually a return guest. He was gracious enough to have provided me an initial interview. And that was when there was some contractual issues that were going on with Sesame Street. So there was a bit of I don't know if it was a self-imposed or if it was an externally imposed, there was a bit of a gag order. So CNN wanted to talk to him, Fox, all the outlets, all the big outlets wanted to talk to him, and we had already prearranged. His daughter is the one who oversees the scheduling, so she and I behind the scenes had cemented this date for radio for our initial show, which did in fact end up happening, but it looked like it was going to be canceled because of the gag order and because of some of the contentiousness that was surrounding some contract issues. And so she had said no to all the other big media outlets, and she felt that she had to say no to me and felt very badly for that because they were already committed to the show. And I said, okay, well, let's hold on for a second, because I'd already ramped this up. It had already been marketed. Everybody was, super jazzed about this upcoming interview with Bob McGrath. He's synonymous with so many people's childhood, and he's just such a bright light. So I just said, Kat, I said, let's not cancel it. I said, obviously there's some things that we can't talk about, which I'm completely prepared to honor and respect that. I'm not going to throw him any curveballs or put him in any compromising position, but let's face it, there's so many different aspects and elements of what makes your dad who he is, and he's succeeded and done so many wonderful things to pay it forward in his career that have touched upon the lives of adults, children, really all demographics. I said, so let's proceed with the interview, and we'll talk about the things that we safely can talk about, and then we can bring him back perhaps for a part 2 interview if he's up for that, when he's more freely able to discuss things openly as it pertains to Sesame Street. So she's like, oh my gosh, she goes, you're the only one who ever offered that, and she said, for that reason alone, I'm going to say yes, and we're going to commit to going forward with the show. So we had a lovely interview. Feedback from that was fantastic, even though we weren't at liberty to talk about Sesame Street. Now he's coming back. Like I say, this Friday, and we're going to talk more openly about his journey with Sesame Street. And so I couldn't be more grateful to him. He's absolutely a phenomenal individual, and has done so much for so many people in his life.
I saw a great interview with him. I don't know if you know this, but the cast of Sesame Street has been at the Thanksgiving Day Parade, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York for something like 40 straight years. They always have a float. They're always there. And on one particular year, he didn't show up. And then the following year, they're interviewing the cast and he's there. And they go, Bob, what happened? And he just came out honestly. He goes, I got lost somewhere between Sesame Street and Broadway. And it was one of the funniest comments. It was such a great quote. And I'm like, and only those who grew up with Sesame Street can appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So you've got a lot of things going on, girl. You really are like rocking it. So talk to me. Let's talk a little Thrive on a different variable.
Sure.
Talk to me about your new thing with Thrive Global.
Well, I appreciate that. So yes, I was actually, I'd say this is going on now maybe 6 weeks ago, and I was in transit. I was on my way to do some filming and production with my TV show with some guests that were about to show up. And I had a few minutes to touch up my makeup and make sure I was okay. And I was
you had to look all pretty. Yes, you did.
Yeah. It's not my thing, but it's part of the shtick. So anyway, so I pull over in my car just to quickly touch on my emails, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything that had to deal with TV for that day. And I see that there's an email directly from Arianna Huffington in response to my having only, I'd say 24, 48 hours, no more than that, having reached out to her to see if she would be interested in being a prospective guest on my radio show. She responded, one, I didn't know if I was going to get a response, but she kindly reached out to me and she said, Lisa, and she referred to me as dear. She was so sweet. And she just said, hi, Lisa, dear, I want to thank you very much for your very kind offer. And as much as, I would love to be on a guest on your radio show, I'm just really off the hook right now. But what I would like to do is offer you an opportunity to be a blogger for my new site, Thrive Global. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm sitting there and, you and I share Meg in common. And so I just immediately fired that off to Meg. And I said a few things that I can't say here perhaps on your show, but I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, oh my God, like, you
don't kid yourself. You could drop the F-bomb if you want.
So I forwarded it to her and I said, like, holy fuck. And so anyway, she responded and she knew I was in the process of needing to be on set. So she said we would pick that up afterwards. But then I responded to Arianna and I said, thank you so very much. I'm completely thrown back here and you've just like completely blown me away. And I couldn't be more grateful and I couldn't be more honored. And of course, I would love to be a blogger. And so in addition to providing regular, consistent written blogs, she's also invited me to issue some of my radio podcast links up to the site as well. So
spectacular. That's great.
So yeah, and she and I've been in back and forth contact through email on, I'd say about 4 or 5 different occasions. And then there's something, I sent her actually copies of my children's book to personally thank her. It was just my gesture of kindness. And I thought by reading my book, she would glean another aspect of who I am and what I'm all about, character-wise and passions-wise. And so she got somebody in her department to reach out to me, and they've now asked for excerpts and stuff. They're going to put it up on the site, and not just like my page, but their site. So I was blown away by that. that, and Meg's working on that behind the scenes and getting all the dimensions and everything that they've requested, and then we're going to be sending that this week. I'm thinking, yes.
That's awesome. I will say this for any of the Thrive Loud listeners who want to know about how to connect with a target or a customer about growing your business or trying to get that client that you want to, or the interview you're trying to get for a show or anything. Nobody is more fearless than Lisa. She will do whatever it takes to get you on the show. And for business development people and salespeople listening, this is the type of fearless mindset that she goes out. There is no stopping. There is no, well, what if? She just does. And that is exactly what you want. She gets out there and says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to send it. And that's it. Doesn't think, doesn't do it. She just hits the go button and presses it. And that's the type of energy and passion and direction that she's always driven with. So I wanted to hit a couple of standard questions I ask on the show, even though you are nowhere near standard, way above that. When you are having trouble thriving, who do you seek to? Who is your sensei to get you back on track?
Well, I've said all along throughout my journey, long before people would have gleaned me as a so-called public figure, my intangible mentor has always been Oprah Winfrey. Always. She, there's so many parallels between her life, her story, her career path, mine. Of course, we're operating at different levels within that. But she really was one of those people who came out and talked about things that nobody was talking about. She really took a lot of risks. She was very vulnerable, very raw, very revealing. All these things that show people and demonstrate to people that it's safe to do so. And again, you never know whose life you're changing and who you're anchoring as a result of being so brave and courageous to do so. When I thought I was alone, when I thought I was isolated, when I thought that there was nobody who I could talk to or who would take me seriously, I just had to, put on the TV, and it was like she was speaking to me. And I know that she has that same profound effect and has resonated with millions and millions and millions of people for many of the same reasons as she's resonated with me. And I've actually spoken to her personal assistant. She too has received tangible copies of my book.
Like I said, nothing holds back. No holds barred for her.
So, and I'm trying to get Oprah on radio. She wasn't able to for 2017, but I'm trying still for 2018, even if it's just a 20-minute snippet.
Oh, we know it's gonna happen. By the way, that I'm not even questioning.
And I've said this, Lou. I've said this, and there's no arrogance attached to this. It's just it's a true belief within myself, and I for anything that I say that is important to me that I've chosen to endeavor to do or to hone or to manifest, I've accomplished it. And I think the power of the mind and the power of how we dialogue with ourselves and the way in which we choose to navigate our lives, that's where the results show up. And so it's non-negotiable for me to, on a constant daily basis, operate within that sphere of energy. And so there are no surprises and there are no coincidences when these things do show up for me. And so I know I'm going to meet Oprah in person. Never mind have her on my radio. I know I'm going to meet her in person. When, where, what the circumstances may be surrounding that, I don't know, and I don't really care, but I know it's going to happen.
That's awesome. Give us one takeaway you want the Thrive Loud listeners to walk away with.
Wow. Well, again, going back to some things that I traditionally say, and I truly inherently believe intrinsically to the core of my being, truly be your own hero, be your own shero, be your own leader. Get very comfortable with being uncomfortable. Really do the work, truly take the time, see yourself as the investment that you are. You are with yourself 24/7. And I say to people, as I say to myself on those difficult, challenging days when things like trepidation creep in, or self-doubt or uncertainty, talk to yourself no differently than you would talking to a friend who's in crisis or going through struggle, or who, is not feeling top of their game. Would you sit there and listen and say or do things to make your friend feel worse than they already feel? No, absolutely not. So why treat yourself as a secondary class citizen? You really have to be your best friend. You really have to be your best friend, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to invest in yourself. And if you don't do that, you don't then, in my opinion, have the right to ask other people to get on board with you.
Great. I love that. You need to be your best friend. That is your quote of the day here. I love it. Lisa McDonald, your favorite movie of all time?
Oh, wow.
And I know you're not a media person, but I know you watch movies.
Occasionally I watch movies. The one movie that I has always stuck with me is the Joy Luck Club. And so, that has to do with women and life seen through a woman's perspective, and people who are of different cultures and different things that they've had to overcome, and different stigmas and stereotypes. So, that would be one of the serious movies. Life of Pi.
That's a fun one. I like that movie, Life of Pi. I saw that with my kids. Really like that.
Yeah, I love that movie. I love all the kids' movies. I really like, what's that? Hakuna Matata. That comes from Walt Disney.
The Lion King. Who wouldn't love The Lion King? Come on.
I love The Lion King. I love the whole, message about the circle of life. I mean, I love all that stuff. I love anything that I walk away from feeling like my soul's been enriched and touched, So anything that has that type of deeper meaning, those deeper layers, those abstract messages, anything that offers that. And there's just too many to cite right now, but that's what I'm drawn to. Those kinds of messages, those kinds of films, those kinds of books, those kinds of podcasts. I love substance.
Perfect.
I love people. I love people who have substance, and I love any form of media that has substance.
How can everybody find you, Lisa McDonald? Give us all your social media, website plugs, and everything they need to do to find Lisa McDonald.
Well, you can find me, as Lou mentioned, you can find me on Arianna Huffington's site, Thrive Global. I've got my own page there. I've been completely branded, so everything, in the search, you can Google me. There's Fearless this, Fearless that. I'm on Twitter. I have 2 pages on Facebook. One is business, one is personal. I'm on Instagram. I love Instagram. The people there and the engagement is fantastic. I am on LinkedIn. I'm part of C-Suite. Not as actively engaged as what you are, Mr. Rockstar, but still part of the C-Suite family, no less. And my website is under reconstruction. It has been for quite some time. There's been some legitimate reasons for hiccup along the way, but my understanding is it's going to be relaunched by the end of this month. And so if you...
By the time of the airing of the show, it'll come out. So where can we find it?
Well, right now, if you go to lisamcdonaldauthor.com, no matter what stage it's in, you can be directed. Yes.
Awesome. I can't thank you enough for having you on the show today. This was fun.
I can't thank you enough, Lou. This has been fantastic. What an honor. And I know this podcast is going to bring immense success and engagement and connectedness. And I think everything you do is spectacular. I really think the world of you. And I think you're just one of those people who emanate all kinds of amazing energy and positivity. And you're genuine. You can tell the difference, particularly in the personal industry field, because it's such an oversaturated industry. You can tell who truly loves what they do, is on fire, and is the type of person you want to align yourself with. And that is definitely you, my friend. You're at the top of the list for me.
Lisa McDonald, right back at you.
Aww.
So thank you for joining us. And until next week, keep thriving, onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Thrive Loud, or find us on the web at thrivepartners.net.